They teased us with it at CES, and now it's finally here. Meet the Minisforum MS-A2, the 16-core micro workstation of my dreams. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. At the beginning of 2024, Minisforum launched this, the MS-01. A new take on mini PCs with more in common with a high-end workstation than with the mobile CPU-powered disposable boxes that flood Amazon and AliExpress. This is an honest-to-God workstation-capable PC. I'm talking 14 cores and 20 threads of Intel Raptor Lake thanks to a Core i9-13900H. Granted, that's only 6 performance cores, but still, that's a heck of a lot of power in such a small package. You get up to 96 gigabytes of DDR5 memory, dual 2.5 gigabit and dual 10 gigabit networking, a total of 3 M.2 slots, one of which can be converted over to a U.2 port for upwards of 15 terabytes of storage in a single SSD, plus a full PCI Express X8 slot for expanded networking or graphics, all in a package that's less than 2 inches thick. It's safe to say it's one of the most performance-dense and I/O-rich packages on the market. And even Minisforum's follow-up in the MS-A1, an AMD desktop-powered mini workstation, couldn't quite match the original. The A1 may have a Ryzen 7 8700G with 8 cores and 16 threads, but it's still just a 65-watt chip, and in fact lacked almost all of the expandability and I/O of the original, no 10 gigabit networking, and no PCI Express expandability. But now we have an actual AMD-powered follow-up, and man oh man is this thing an absolute beast. This is the MS-A2, and it's powered by an AMD Ryzen 9 9955HX, with a full 16 cores and 32 threads of Zen 5. What makes this special compared to the Intel-powered MS-01 is the AMD 9955HX is basically the exact same silicon from the Ryzen 9950X desktop CPU, just tuned down a bit to 75 watts. It still has a 5.4 GHz boost clock, and while it isn't quite as fast as the desktop chip in a flat-out race, single-threaded performance is virtually identical. But on top of the Zen 5 power plant, we also get all of the same I/O and features that made the MS-01 so popular. Back are the dual 10 gigabit SFP Plus ports, back are the triple M.2 slots, one of which will convert over to a U.2 drive, and back is the X8 PCI Express slot. But all this performance and expandability doesn't come cheap. While the MS-01 debuted at a price of $679, the MS-A2 with the Ryzen 9 9955HX will set you back a bit more, coming in at $869. There's also a Zen 4 powered variant with the Ryzen 7945HX for just $639, if you don't need quite as much raw horsepower. I've actually built a couple systems with this CPU on Minisforum's ITX board, and I'll put links to those videos in the description if you're interested in checking that out. But today's video is all about the Zen 5 Ryzen 9 9955HX, and if the $200 is worth the performance boost over either the 7945HX or the Intel 13900H. Let's find out. Starting off with storage, the MS-A2 already has a massive advantage over the Intel-based MS-01 in that all 3 of its NVMe ports are full Gen 4x4 speed. On the MS-01, the PCI Express was kind of all over the place, with one of the M.2s running at full Gen 4x4, another running at Gen 3x4, and the last at a pretty weak Gen 4x2. While that's plenty of speed for a single workstation in most use cases, it's not exactly great for networking multiple systems together or clustering your storage across multiple devices, as your speed would vary wildly depending on where the box decided to put your files. That's no longer a worry on the MS-A2 though, with all 3 M.2s running at full Gen 4x4 speeds. And just like the MS-01, you have the option of converting one of the M.2 ports into a U.2 drive tray, allowing you to install massive amounts of storage. Officially, Minisforum claims up to 15 terabytes, as it only supports drives up to 8mm tall, but that's still impressive for a machine of this size. Taking a look at the networking, one thing I really appreciate about Minisforum is they don't cheap out on components. While 2.5 gigabit Ethernet is increasingly common on motherboards and mini PCs alike, 10 gigabit is still a very rare option. And rather than going with an inexpensive chipset for the 10 gigabit ports, Minisforum opted to go with an Intel-based chip in the X710. You get a pair of SFP Plus 10 gigabit ports that are reliable and fast, and you have full driver support in basically any OS that you choose to run on here. One thing I didn't mention earlier is the configuration options that you have for the MS-A2. You can buy this as a bare bones unit where you supply your own storage and memory, and that's actually what I would recommend if you do end up buying one. You'll likely get a better deal, especially if you plan on adding multiple M.2 drives anyway. You can also buy it as a pre-configured system though, with a 1TB Gen 4x4 Kingston NVMe, along with 64GB of DDR5 5600 memory. I have a reviewer sample of the MS-A1 here today, which does include a 1TB drive and 32GB of DDR5, which is not an option that they actually sell. For a workstation, that's still likely enough, but if you plan on running this as a tiny server, you'll likely want to go with either 64 or 96GB of memory, and potentially even go with ECC memory, which the MS-A2 does support. The pre-configured system also ships with Windows 11 Pro, for better or for worse depending on what you want to do with it. But most desktop and server Linux distros should be fully supported, thanks to the AMD chipset, graphics, and the Intel Ethernet-based drivers. Inside of Windows, we get some pretty outstanding performance, especially comparing to the MS-01 and the Intel 13900H. In Cinebench R23, we're looking at nearly 2.5 times the multi-threaded performance of Intel's top mobile-based CPU, and around 28% faster even in straight single-threaded tasks. What's more, the 13900H is a hybrid CPU with 6 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. While they're fine in terms of overall performance, they can be a bit inconsistent depending on how applications work with the CPU scheduler, both inside of Windows and inside of Linux. By contrast, the Ryzen 9955HX is all the same core type, with 16 Zen 5 full performance cores that can all boost up to 5.4 GHz. I aligned some performance struggles when running hybrid CPUs in my previous video on the MS-01, but the MS-A2 will have none of these struggles, making it a much more competent and consistent server, especially if you plan on using it as a virtualization host. So, for $869, you get 16 cores and 32 threads worth of Zen 5, dual 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, dual 10 gigabit SFP+, support for up to 96 gigabytes of DDR5 with ECC, room for a half-height PCI Express 5.0 X8 card, along with 3 full-speed Gen 4x4 NVMe drives, all in a tiny 1.8-liter package. It is light years faster and more efficient than either of the previous models, and competitively priced with similar performance desktop systems. If you are interested in picking up a Minisforum MS-02 for yourself, you can follow the links down in the video description. Now, as a disclaimer, those are affiliate links, and I do get a small kickback every time you buy something from them, but that does help keep the lights on around here. The MS-A2 is a more consistent, more refined, and more competent version of the MS-01, and I love it just as much as I loved the original. It's incredible how much faster we've gotten in just 12 months' time. Remember, this is about 2.5 times faster than the MS-01 is, and it's only about $190 more. Pretty incredible progress here. Anyway, that's going to do it for me in this video. If you like this one, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Follow me on Blue Sky at Craft Computing for daily shenanigans like this. And if you like the content you see on this channel and want to help support me in what I do, consider joining the Patreon. Link is also down in the video description. And that's going to do it for me in this one. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Cheers, everyone. Like a tall glass of hopped water. Yeah. I also think it's high time to finally have a New Glarus Brewing beer on this channel. This is the New Glarus Brewing Moon Man No Coast Pale Ale, which I think is one of the funniest pale ale names of all time. Am I just blind, or do I not see an ABV on this? It's not in the Surgeon General. It's not anywhere on the Wisconsin thumbprint. I don't think there's anything more Wisconsin than going, it's under 7%. Does that even count? I will say, I am not an expert on New Glarus Brewing. I am aware of the Spotted Cow and of the Moon Man. That's the only 2 beers I've ever even heard of from there. I have had Spotted Cow. I have not had Moon Man. This beer is weird. I know it's a pale ale. I know it's not an IPA. I know they intentionally did not put India Pale Ale in the name because they didn't mean to. But it's just kind of flavorless. Like, it's got a really good smell. It's got a really good nose on it. Which is why I'm so perplexed by this one. Like, I'm getting some earthy and vegetal hop smells that I get on a lot of pretty decent IPAs. But then you taste it, and you get like this initial celery-like hop profile, and then it just kind of vanishes. There's no citrus or floral or, intense grassiness or dankness, or it's just kind of, it tastes like eating lettuce. Yeah, there's flavor there. But lettuce by itself is just the food that my food eats. I get more flavor out of a pub beer or a Rainier. I venture to say I get more flavor out of some hopped waters, some Klausthalers. I definitely get more flavor out of Athletic Brewing, which are non-alcoholic pale ales. This is weird. In fact, hold on. I happen to have an Athletic Brewing Golden Dawn Golden Ale. Not supposed to be the most flavorful, but non-alcoholic, light. There is more hop flavor in an Athletic Brewing Golden Dawn Golden Ale, not even a pale ale, not supposed to be a hoppy beer, than this No Coast Pale Ale. And in fact, after drinking this, that tastes like water. Wisconsin, I don't need to bash your beloved state brew here. You guys got some catch-up work to do. The Wisconsinites are going to hate me now.